Welcome to Movie Rehash. Today, I'm going to explain an action thriller movie released in 2014, titled The Equalizer. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Robert McCall wakes up early for work at Home Mart. He's well liked by his coworkers, but they don't know about his past. Today, he has lunch with his friend and coworker, Ralphie. McCall is helping Ralphie lose weight and asks about his lunch. Ralphie's answers seem good until McCall hears a crunch, and discovers there are chips in Ralphie's sandwich. McCall reminds Ralphie that he needs to lose weight for his security guard test and encourages him to focus on progress, not perfection. McCall often struggles to sleep, so he visits a nearby diner that's open all night. He reads books and enjoys tea there. Currently, he's reading The Old Man and the Sea. A young girl in that place asks him if the man in the book has caught the fish, and he tells her that he hasn't caught it yet. After finishing her pie, the young girl goes outside to call a taxi. At his job, a few of McCall's younger coworkers inquire about his previous occupation before joining their workplace. He playfully says that he used to be a pip with Gladys Knight and even does a little dance to amuse them. That night, McCall returns to the diner and encounters the same girl. She notices he's reading a new book and asks about how the previous one ended. While they're chatting, a limo stops across from the diner. The girl receives a call from her pimp, Slavy, who informs her that she has a client waiting in the limo. She expresses her disgust at the idea of working with this client, but her pimp disregards her feelings and insists she go. Reluctantly, she heads outside to join the obese man who is waiting in the car. The following night, McCall sees the girl at the diner, but she has a bruise on her face. He kindly offers her a donut he brought from work. Nervously, she breaks their usual routine and joins him at his table. She introduces herself as Terry, although her real name is Alina. Terry gives McCall a CD of her singing and hopes to get his opinion later. As they leave the diner, they talk and walk together for a while. However, their encounter takes a troubling turn when a car approaches them. It's Slavy and his driver, Tevi. Slavy gets out of the car and slaps Alina. McCall contemplates intervening but heeds Alina's request not to interfere. Robert notices that Tevi is holding a gun. Slavy hands McCall a card for his business and suggests he should choose another girl. McCall returns to the diner on another night and learns from the manager that Alina is in the ICU after a severe beating. He rushes to the hospital and sees Alina's face in an even worse state, covered in bruises and injuries. To his surprise, Alina is accompanied by another girl named Mandy, who is sobbing uncontrollably. Robert chooses not to enter the room but watches from a distance, out of sight from the girls. Later, Mandy walks past McCall, still crying. She pours herself a cup of coffee but spills it. McCall offers comfort and inquires about Alina, explaining that he's a friend. Mandy reveals that Slavy had beaten Alina because she had fought back against him. Slavy had become furious and used her as an example. Mandy goes on to explain that Slavy had once thrown battery acid in a girl's face and keeps her around as a reminder not to defy him. She describes how he treats the girls as commodities and nothing more. McCall examines the card Slavy gave him and decides to take action. He locates the meeting place above a restaurant where Slavy and his men are gathered. McCall enters the room carrying an envelope containing $9,800, hoping to secure Alina's release. Initially, the thugs mock him, with Slavy suggesting the money would only buy Alina's freedom for a month. McCall retrieves the money and begins to leave, but then has a change of heart. He decides to stay and locks the door. After carefully assessing the situation, including the weapons the men possess, he sets a timer on his watch. When one of the men points his gun at McCall, he swiftly disarms the man, causing him to accidentally shoot Slavy in the throat. McCall then uses a shot glass to incapacitate another man by jabbing it into his eye. He proceeds to stab the third man and eventually grabs a corkscrew, repeatedly stabbing Tevi until he finishes him off. McCall goes to Slavy's side and watches as he slowly succumbs to his injuries. After the killings, a Russian mobster named Teddy comes to Boston in search of the killer. He forms an alliance with a group of corrupt police officers to gather information and leads on the perpetrator. At work, McCall notices that Ralphie is absent and learns that Ralphie has quit. Concerned, McCall decides to visit a restaurant where Ralphie's mother is employed. He discovers that Ralphie is assisting there due to a fire that had broken out, supposedly by accident. Meanwhile, Teddy is brought by one of the corrupt cops, Frank Masters, to the workplace of a gangster named John Looney as part of his quest to find the killer. John insults Teddy and Russians in general, provoking Teddy's anger. In response, Teddy strikes John with an ashtray while Frank takes down John's henchman. Teddy continues to assault John until the man loses consciousness. The other two corrupt cops, Ramar and Peterson, are dining at Ralphie's mother's restaurant. They demand protection money from her and threaten another accident if the money isn't delivered on time again next week. Outside the restaurant, McCall approaches them and expresses his intention to report a crime. Initially, they dismiss him and tell him to call 911, but McCall dials one of their personal cell phones. McCall shows them a video he captured of them extorting a convenience store clerk, during which they confess to starting the fire at the restaurant. He gives them an ultimatum: either return the money or he'll release the incriminating video to the news stations. The cops respond by drawing their guns on McCall, but he swiftly overpowers them both. They eventually comply and later return the money to Ralphie's mother. McCall is seen playing baseball with his co-workers. To everyone's surprise, Ralphie arrives in a security guard uniform, indicating that he has successfully passed his test. A criminal enters Home Mart and threatens the cashier, Jenny, with a gun, demanding the money from the cash register. McCall calmly approaches and hands over the money. The robber goes a step further and demands Jenny's ring, which has sentimental value as it belonged to her mother. Tearfully, she gives it to him. McCall carefully observes various details about the man, such as his tattoos and cap, but he refrains from taking action because there are children entering the store with their mother. Instead, McCall discreetly follows the man outside and manages to note the license plate on his car. He shares this information with the police, who inform him that this incident is part of a series of robberies committed by the same man. The next day, Jenny is surprised to find her ring back in the cash register. McCall, having accomplished his mission, discreetly returns the sledgehammer to its original place on the rack after wiping it clean. Teddy obtains some information about McCall, but most of it seems clean with no apparent connection to Slavi's death. Along with Frank and another antagonist, they stake out the diner while one of their associates tries to apprehend McCall inside. McCall senses that the man has nefarious intentions and asks if they are expecting anyone else. The situation escalates as the man brandishes a gun and approaches McCall. Just then, a truck pulls up near the diner, obstructing the view for Teddy and his crew. Seizing the opportunity, McCall strikes the man in the stomach with his book and swiftly eliminates him by snapping his neck at the table. He further disrupts the situation by disabling the lights with a knife inserted into an outlet. McCall then exits the diner and discreetly photographs Teddy and his men in their car. The gangsters track McCall to his home, where he proceeds to treat a wound he sustained during the earlier confrontation with the gunman by boiling some honey. Just before Teddy and his henchmen arrive, McCall manages to slip away unnoticed. From a different room, McCall monitors their movements through hidden cameras placed around his apartment. Teddy becomes aware that McCall is watching them. McCall seeks refuge at the home of his friends, Brian and Susan Plummer. Knowing that Susan possesses the skills to gather information about Teddy and the people he's associated with, McCall requests her assistance. While Susan is out gathering the information, Brian reveals to McCall that he was believed to be deceased, but Susan had known the truth all along. Upon Susan's return, she informs McCall that the men he eliminated were connected to the Russian mafia, led by Vladimir Pushkin. Teddy, whose real name is Nikolai, is the individual Pushkin sends when critical tasks need to be accomplished. Susan further discloses that Ramar and Peterson, who were previously on Pushkin's payroll, were found dead a few days earlier under mysterious circumstances. Susan warns McCall that these dangerous men won't stop until he and everyone he cares about are out of harm's way, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. McCall finds Frank and uses a hose to trap him in his car with harmful gas until he agrees to help. Frank gives in and leads McCall to a warehouse where the Russians stash their money. McCall makes all the gangsters their surrender and secures them along with the money for the police. After that, he releases the workers. When the police show up, they find the gangsters, the money, and they arrest Frank. McCall then goes to Frank's safety deposit box and takes his money, passport, and a USB with more information about Pushkin and his dealings. He locates his oil tankers and destroys them. Teddy and his gang take over Home Mart and hold McCall's friends, including Ralphie and Jenny, hostage. They demand McCall to come to them, tracking his phone. When McCall doesn't appear, they threaten to harm one of his co-workers. However, music suddenly plays over the intercom, distracting the gangsters. McCall silently takes them down one by one, using barbed wire to hang one, stabbing another in the neck, and causing an explosion in a room with hydrogen and a microwave to kill one. Ralphie tries to help but gets shot in the leg. McCall assists him in escaping until he faces Teddy after the explosion triggers the sprinklers. McCall grabs a nail gun and repeatedly shoots Teddy with it until he hits him in the throat, ultimately ending Teddy's life. 3 days later, McCall tracks down Pushkin in his Moscow home while Pushkin is in the shower. McCall repeatedly switches the lights on and off and runs the sink water. Startled, Pushkin goes to the sink and finds that McCall has disappeared. Confused and frightened, he calls for his guards without realizing that McCall tampered with the wires and left them exposed. When the water hits the wires, Pushkin is electrocuted, and the other guards have already been eliminated by McCall. McCall comes back to Boston and meets Alina, who is no longer injured. She shares that she has found a real job and started reading. Alina expresses her gratitude to McCall for his help and gives him a friendly kiss on the cheek before they say their goodbyes. In the final scene, McCall is back at the diner, working on his laptop. He gets a message asking for help, and he responds with a simple yes. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.